Well, unfortunately, Frederica, this town halls, which should be part of the process for us to communicate with our constituents and have dialogue, became really an organized ambush by Democrats and a lot of radical groups to push a false narrative that Republicans are doing something wrong. And that spread lies. So I thought, regardless what really a lot of my colleagues understand, is becoming a safety situation because we have a very violent group of creating chaos, which really puts safety of our staff and other constituents, police at stake, decided not to do it. I thought we still need to do it because we shouldn't be silenced and we need to talk about the issues that are important for the American people because we try to legislate a lot of good issues and that will benefit Americans. So we did that, but unfortunately the acting was very violent. And I'll tell you about the questions relating to Pete Huck that is kind of hypocritical that that a lot of people are so fighting for the same due process for people here illegally, which realistically we can do only in a limited way. They don't feel that actually people like Pete Hexes should have a due process before we're going to do any, demand resignations and take them out of their position that they were appointed to. If some innocent mistakes happen, we always have a room for improvement. But I think they're entitled for more due process, not a mob rule, than illegals in our country that violated law and working with cartels and create dangers in the country. But unfortunately, the other side doesn't want to have dialogues. So I'm actually a lot in my district, had a lot of meetings beyond town halls. This is organized by Democrats. They did a lot of social media posts. A lot of them were standing, and very radical groups in my district were standing all day to make sure that they can get in first, because we even expanded capacity for the first town hall. It still was, normal. We don't have so many people because ultimately that's agenda, organized group of people. So they wanted to make sure they get in, and there were professional protesters, agitators. They do it in other places, that they get in first, that they can flood the room, that a lot of legitimate constituents couldn't even come. So a lot of them probably are constituents. We have a very diverse district, but they represent extreme left, not represent really the Indiana 5th district, because majority of people in my district don't want violence. They don't want to spit on my stuff and scream for 2 hours, and they want to have a conversation. That's not a majority of Americans, and truly, I don't think majority of Americans want violence. No, actually, it must have been very helpful for us to bring more transparency and audit better the government, that the Congress can look and decide what actions we need to put into the law in our appropriation reconciliation. Because as an auditor, someone who has been talking now for years, and actually not just me, Government Accountability Office was talking how terrible and broken government. We don't have simple controls. We don't know where the money are going. Departments are not auditable. We have a lot of fraud and we do nothing about it. No one is doing anything. At least he brings more transparency where American people can see now. So we make sure that we get rid of fraud and save these programs that benefits for the people that belong these programs to, that we have enough money and we're going bankrupt. And I just add to your other point. Actually, my Muncie town hall was much more brutal, in the way that they were much more organized, protested, and were actually very brutal to my staff and some of the Trump supporters. And it was much, it was very serious and very concerning for the police. Well, I think, unfortunately, just go to your point, 85% of spending, Congress doesn't even look at it for decades now. So until we reform our processes, which really hard to do on a partisan basis, it needs to be a bipartisan agreement, which very difficult to reach any bipartisanship. Unfortunately, we tried for a few years to try to do fiscal commission and couldn't get through it. And even though introduced it in both chambers, and only very few people in Congress want to govern, that's a problem. But now it's a lot of grandstanding for Democrats, so I don't see it very realistic, but we'll still try to do it. So then a lot of ways reconciliation is becoming the only place for us. We at least can look at some terrible waste, fraud, and abuse in some of these programs like Medicare and Medicaid. The Democrats and Nancy Pelosi used to be all for it, where Vice President Biden was saying it's a Ponzi schemes. We need to do something. We need to save these programs. And suddenly when Republicans are doing, there is no fraud. We're going to be protecting fraud. So there are some things we can do. There are some things need to be bipartisan. partisan will have to deal with it. But hopefully we can come to more common sense, because country is in trouble fiscally and we need to govern. And I hope more people will come and listen to the Republic, and I hopefully we will not be intimidated and silenced, and talk about good policy we want to do for all Americans. Because good economy, good jobs, dealing with fraud, saving these programs, have a future for our children, that should be common sense we should agree on.